The night had fallen heavy over the small city. Rain lashed against the windows with a fury that seemed endless, and the thunder rolled across the skies like a warning from above. Flights had been canceled. Streets were drowning under torrents of water. The world outside looked merciless, a place no one would want to stand exposed for even a minute. Jack stood by the edge of the road, his jacket soaked through, his breath fogging in the freezing air. He was a tall black man, strong in appearance, but the cold cut through him like a knife. He needed shelter just for the night. His eyes landed on a glowing signboard that promised warmth and comfort. Grand Plaza Hotel. Dragging his wet shoes across the marble floor, Jack entered the lobby. The air inside was warm, golden light spilling across polished tiles. Behind the reception desk stood a young woman, sharp-eyed, her name tag reading Katrine. She straightened as Jack approached, her expression shifting quickly from practiced politeness to thinly veiled disdain. "Good evening," Jack said, his voice steady despite the storm still echoing outside. "I'd like a room, please." Katrine tilted her head, her smile cold. "Do you have a reservation?" Jack shook his head. "No, ma'am, but I know your hotel policy. You don't leave guests stranded at night. If rooms are available, one must be arranged." Her lips pressed together. "I'm afraid we're fully booked. You'll have to try somewhere else." Jack frowned, glancing at the gleaming hall around him. "Please, it's freezing outside. I just need one room." Before he could say more, a well-dressed man in a tailored suit and tie walked up behind him. His shoes shined, his cologne strong, his presence demanding instant attention. Katrine's demeanor transformed at once. "Good evening, sir," she said brightly. "Yes, we have 3 rooms available. Would you prefer a deluxe or a suite?" Jack turned sharply. 3 rooms? His heart sank as he watched the suited man wave his card casually. "No need for ID, sir," Katrine added with a sweet smile. "Everything will be arranged." Jack stepped forward again, his voice tight. "Excuse me, ma'am. I just heard you say 3 rooms are empty. That means 2 are still available. Could I please take one?" Her expression hardened instantly. "You need to leave now." Jack took out his ATM card, placing it on the counter. "Check it. Withdraw the amount yourself if you doubt me. Here's my ID as well." Katrine glanced at the card, then at the ID. She scoffed. "This? Fake. People like you don't live in neighborhoods like this. You look like a thief." The words hit Jack like a slap. His chest tightened. But before he could respond, Katrine raised her hand. "Security!" A guard appeared, grabbing Jack's arm. He stumbled back as the rain-washed night came rushing toward him again. "Try the motels across the street," Katrine called after him, her voice sharp with contempt. "That's where people like you belong." Jack stood in the downpour, the neon lights of the Grand Plaza glowing behind him, his heart heavy. Not because he had been denied a room, but because of what it represented. He had seen that look before, that assumption, that label. But what no one in that hotel knew was this. The man they had just thrown out into the storm was not only wealthy, he was their owner. The storm did not let up. Jack stood under the canopy of the hotel's entrance for a moment, letting the cold water stream down his face. He could have walked away. He had the power, the money, and the influence to check into the most luxurious hotel in the city, or to call his private driver, who would arrive within minutes. But Jack stayed. It wasn't about the room anymore. It was about the truth that had unfolded right in front of him, the moment he had stepped inside. He wasn't seen as a traveler in need, or a customer like anyone else. He was seen as a label, a prejudice, a stereotype, and it cut deeper than the winter rain could ever cut. From the glass doors behind him, he could still see the warm golden lobby. Katrine, the receptionist, was laughing lightly as she handed over keys to the suited man. She looked radiant, professional, attentive. The difference between how she had treated him and how she treated the man in the suit was so stark it almost seemed staged, except it wasn't. It was reality. Jack's fists clenched. His father's face came, rushing back to his memory, an image burned into him from decades ago. He was only 8 years old then. His father had taken him to a similar hotel, drenched from another storm. His father's voice, kind but tired, had asked for a room, and the same thing had happened. They were told to leave. They were laughed at, mocked, and denied, while another man, cleaner, richer looking, whiter, was ushered in without question. That night, Jack had slept in a broken-down shelter with his father. Their clothes damp, their hearts heavy. But his father had told him one thing, a promise that Jack never forgot. "Son, you will grow up and prove to this world that worth is not written on skin or clothes. It's written in work, in honesty, and perseverance." And so Jack had done exactly that. He worked harder than anyone else. He studied when others slept. He built businesses one brick at a time until he stood at the helm of success. Now, he wasn't just another man at the counter. He was the very owner of the chain that bore the name Grand Plaza. Inside, the story was still unfolding. Jack hadn't left yet, and Katrine noticed him standing by the door. She raised her brows, clearly irritated. "Why are you still here? Didn't I tell you to leave?" Jack's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Do you always judge people before you know them?" Her eyes narrowed. "I don't have time for lectures. Some people belong in places like this." She gestured to the glittering chandeliers, the marble floor. "And some people don't. It's just the way life works." Jack studied her, memorizing every word. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he stepped back into the storm, letting the door shut behind him. At that very moment, the hotel manager walked in from the side corridor. He was a middle-aged man with glasses sliding down his nose. He saw Jack leave, but thought nothing of it. Instead, he turned to Katrine with a tired smile. "You can go home soon," he said softly. "It's late. You've worked enough today." But Katrine wasn't ready to go. She leaned against the counter, her eyes glittering with something beyond ambition. "No," she said. "I'll stay. Tomorrow's going to change my life. Didn't you say the owner is coming? You promised me he'll hear about me, that maybe he'll make me manager." The manager nodded. "Yes, the owner called. He said he'll be here in the morning. And I'll recommend you. You've been efficient." Katrine smiled, imagining herself in the manager's chair, giving orders, running the show. She didn't know that the very man she had insulted, rejected, and humiliated had been standing right in front of her just minutes ago. Outside, Jack walked into the storm with a heavy heart but a clear decision. Tomorrow, masks would fall. Tomorrow, the truth would speak. The storm passed with the night. When dawn finally arrived, the city was washed clean, its streets glistening under pale sunlight. Birds returned to the skies, and life seemed to pick itself up again. But inside the Grand Plaza Hotel, a different kind of storm was brewing, one of anticipation, ambition, and nerves. Katrine arrived earlier than usual. Her hair tied neatly, her suit pressed to perfection. She wore a new shade of lipstick, something bolder, more commanding. Today wasn't just another workday. Today was the day the owner would arrive. And if everything went right, today was the day her career would transform. The lobby buzzed with activity. Staff polished every corner, ensuring not a single detail was out of place. Fresh flowers were arranged in tall glass vases. The chandeliers were checked twice. The manager barked small orders, his own nerves visible in the way he adjusted his tie every few minutes. "Is everything ready?" Katrine asked, striding across the lobby with the confidence of someone already in charge. "As ready as we'll ever be," the manager replied. "The owner values discipline, loyalty, and performance. Just be professional." Katrine smiled to herself. "Professional? I'll do more than that. I'll shine so bright he'll have no choice but to make me manager." Guests came and went, but every sound of the revolving door turning made her heart skip. Every arriving car outside made her glance toward the glass front. Was it him? Was it finally him? By noon, tension filled the air like static before lightning. The staff lined up discreetly in the lobby, rehearsing polite smiles and perfect greetings. The manager gathered them close. "Remember," he said in a low but firm voice, "today could change our futures. When the owner steps in, treat him with the respect he deserves." Katrine's pulse quickened. She looked at her reflection in the polished counter glass, adjusting her hair once more. She imagined it, the handshake, the compliment, the acknowledgement of her dedication. She saw herself in the manager's chair, making decisions, commanding authority. The dream felt so close she could almost taste it. And then, finally, the moment came. A sleek black car pulled up outside the hotel. Its tinted windows reflected the sunlight like mirrors, its tires whispering against the wet pavement. The doorman straightened his jacket nervously as the back door opened. The air seemed to hold its breath. A tall figure stepped out, dressed not in a suit or tie this time, but in a simple dark coat. His presence was commanding without effort. His steps were slow, deliberate, as though he had nothing to prove. And yet every eye followed him. Katrine's smile widened. She straightened, standing taller, ready to introduce herself with charm and grace. She rehearsed her words in her head. "Welcome, sir, to your hotel. I am Katrine, your most loyal employee." But then it happened. The figure stepped into the golden light of the lobby, and Katrine's face drained of color. Her knees went weak. The air seemed to vanish from her lungs. It was Jack, the same man she had humiliated, the same man she had called a thief, the same man she had thrown out into the storm. Her heart hammered against her ribs as her mind spun. No, it can't be him. This must be a trick. He was just a stranger. Wasn't he? But the staff bowed their heads, whispering, "Welcome, sir." The manager rushed forward eagerly. "Sir, we're honored to finally meet you in person." Jack's eyes swept the lobby slowly, his expression unreadable. His gaze landed on Katrine for a fraction of a second, and she instantly looked down, her face burning with shame. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, to erase the memory of her words from his mind. But Jack hadn't forgotten a single one. The day of reckoning had begun. The lobby stood in reverent silence as Jack entered. His coat dripped faintly from the remnants of the storm, but his posture carried the weight of authority. Every step echoed across the marble floor like a gavel striking down judgment. The manager hurried forward, smiling nervously. "Welcome, sir. It's an honor. At last, the Grand Plaza meets its master in person." Jack gave a polite nod. His gaze swept the polished counters, the shining chandeliers, the perfectly arranged flowers. He noticed everything, every detail that had been prepared for his arrival. But beneath it all, he felt the weight of something more significant, the memory of last night. The staff lined up, bowing their heads. Only one person could not stand tall, Katrine. She kept her eyes on the floor, her face flushed crimson. Her hands trembled at her sides. He can't know. Maybe he doesn't remember, maybe, but she knew better. Jack's eyes found her again, and for a moment the entire lobby seemed to freeze. "Manager," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "Introduce me to your team." The manager, eager to impress, gestured proudly. "Of course, sir. This is our receptionist, Katrine. She has been one of our most hard-working and dedicated employees. In fact, I was hoping you might consider her for the position of manager, since I am soon to be promoted." The words struck like lightning. Katrine's heart lurched. The moment she had been dreaming of, the recognition, the rise, was finally spoken aloud. But instead of pride, she felt dread twist inside her. Jack's expression didn't change. He studied her silently, his eyes betraying no emotion. Then he spoke slowly, each word deliberate. "Katrine, tell me, do you remember me?" The room went silent. Staff exchanged glances, curious, confused. Katrine swallowed hard, her lips parting, but no words came. Jack stepped closer, his voice lower now, carrying the weight of the night before. "Last night, a man came here in the storm. He asked for a room." Katrine's breath caught. She felt every pair of eyes on her. She wanted to run, to vanish, but her legs betrayed her. Jack continued, his tone sharpening. "He was told there were no rooms, that he didn't belong here, that he looked like a thief." Whispers rippled through the staff. The color drained from Katrine's face entirely. Jack's jaw tightened. "That man was me." The words landed like a hammer, shattering the illusion. Gasps filled the lobby. The manager froze, his mouth open, disbelief etched across his face. The other staff stared at Katrine, shock and shame flashing in their eyes. Katrine's knees weakened. She lowered her head, unable to meet his gaze. "Sir, Enough!" Jack cut her off, his voice sharp but controlled. "You showed me who you are. Not last night, but in the values you live by. You judged before knowing. You decided who was worthy and who was not, based on nothing but appearance. That is not who we are. That is not what this hotel stands for." The silence was suffocating. The chandeliers sparkled above, indifferent to the storm unraveling below. Jack turned to the manager. "You said she is hardworking. But what is hard work worth if it is poisoned by arrogance and prejudice? What is loyalty worth if it is only loyalty to those who look wealthy enough? The manager stammered, searching for words. Sir, I didn't know. Jack raised a hand, silencing him. His gaze returned to Katrine, who stood trembling, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Katrine, he said quietly, almost painfully, last night, you threw me out into the cold. You made me remember the night my own father was turned away from a hotel, just like this one. That pain doesn't vanish. It becomes part of you. And I swore that if I ever owned a hotel, no one would ever be treated that way again. His voice cracked slightly, though he steadied himself. This place was built on that promise, on dignity, on fairness, and you broke it. The lobby felt heavier with every word. The staff's admiration for their owner grew, while their disappointment in Katrine deepened. She covered her face with her hands, shaking, wishing she could undo the choices of last night. Jack stood tall, his verdict clear in his eyes. This hotel has no place for you. The words struck harder than any storm. The lobby was frozen in silence. Katrine stood like a shadow of herself, trembling, her pride shattered. The staff shifted uneasily, unsure of what to do, their eyes fixed on Jack. His presence filled the room, not just because he was the owner, but because his words carried something far heavier. Truth. Jack turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across every face in the lobby. The staff, the manager, even the guests who had paused to witness the drama. They were all part of this moment now. You see, Jack began, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Last night was not the first time I was told I didn't belong. It was not the first time I was thrown into the cold. He paused, his eyes distant, as if the chandeliers above were suddenly stars from a memory long ago. I was a boy once, maybe 8 years old. My father was a working man, honest, strong, but life was hard. One winter night, a storm raged, much like the one we just saw. My father held my hand, and we came to a hotel, not unlike this one, looking for a place to stay. We were wet, tired, freezing. The staff leaned closer, drawn into his words. Even Katrine, with tears in her eyes, couldn't look away. But when my father asked for a room, the receptionist looked at him the way you did. Katrine, cold, dismissive. They said, no rooms available. But we saw people being welcomed in after us. People who looked different. People who fit what they thought a guest should look like. Jack's throat tightened, but he pushed on. That night, my father and I slept outside. I remember shivering until my teeth hurt. I remember looking at my father's face, how he tried to smile, tried to make me believe it didn't matter, but I saw the pain in his eyes, the humiliation, the kind no child ever forgets. A hush fell heavier than before. Even the clinking of glasses from the hotel bar had ceased, as if the building itself was listening. That night, Jack continued, I made myself a promise. I promised that if I ever had the chance, I would build something different. A place where no guest, rich or poor, dressed in silk or soaked in rags, would ever be turned away. A place where dignity mattered more than appearances. He let the words hang for a moment. Then his voice grew firmer. And that is why the Grand Plaza exists. Not just as a business, not just as a hotel, but as a commitment to fairness, to humanity, to the truth that every person has worth. His eyes landed on Katrine once more. She was sobbing now, her hands shaking as she whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Jack's expression was unyielding. No, you didn't know. Because you never asked. Because you judged before you listened. That is the problem. That is why I cannot allow people like you to represent what this hotel stands for. The manager bowed his head ashamed, realizing he had almost recommended someone who had violated the very soul of the hotel's values. The other staff members exchanged looks, some of them filled with tears, others with a newfound respect for the man standing before them. Jack softened slightly as he addressed the room at large. Remember this, our job is not only to give rooms and take money. Our job is to make sure no one who enters these doors feels less than human. We are not gatekeepers of wealth, we are guardians of dignity. If you forget that, you forget why we exist. The words struck deep. The staff straightened, their hearts stirred. It was no longer just about a paycheck. It was about a mission. Jack exhaled slowly, the weight of his past finally spoken aloud. For years, he had carried it in silence. letting it fuel him in boardrooms and business decisions. But today, in this very lobby, it became more than a memory. It became a lesson. And for Katrine, it became a sentence. The lobby felt like a courtroom now. Every light, every shadow, every breath holding on to Jack's words. No one moved. No one dared interrupt. It wasn't just about Katrine anymore. It was about all of them. About what they stood for. Jack stood tall in the center, his voice calm but unshakable. This hotel is not a palace for the wealthy. It is a refuge for the human. That was my father's dream. And it is mine. And I will not let that dream be corrupted. His words echoed like thunder long after they were spoken. Katrine collapsed into the chair behind the counter, her head buried in her trembling hands. The tears flowed freely now, smudging her carefully chosen makeup, undoing the image she had worked so hard to craft. She wasn't the confident woman from last night, or the ambitious dreamer from this morning. She was simply exposed. "Sir, please," she whispered hoarsely. "Give me another chance. I was wrong. I let my pride blind me. I won't make the same mistake again." Jack's eyes softened slightly, but his resolve did not waver. "Last night you didn't see me. You didn't hear me. You only saw what you thought I was. A thief, a beggar, someone beneath you. If you could treat the owner that way, imagine how you would treat a stranger without money, without power. That is not who we are." The manager shifted uneasily. "Sir, shall I?" Jack nodded slowly, his voice steady. "Yes, security will escort her out. Today, Katrine leaves not because she made a mistake, but because she refused to see humanity where it always was." The guards stepped forward. The staff watched silently, some pitying, others stern. Katrine looked at Jack one last time, her eyes red, her voice breaking. I never thought it would matter this much," Jack replied quietly, but every word cut clear. It always matters. She was led out, her footsteps echoing softer and softer until the revolving doors closed behind her. The storm of her ambition had ended in silence. Jack turned back to the staff. His tone softened, warm yet commanding. "Let this be a reminder to you all. We are not here to measure people by their clothes, their wallets, or their skin. We are here to open doors, always, because one open door can change a life." The staff nodded, some with tears glistening in their eyes. A young bellboy, barely 20, stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Sir, my family once stayed here when we lost our home. They gave us a room, and for 3 nights we felt human again. That's why I work here. Because this place, it saved me." Jack smiled faintly, his heart swelling. "That's exactly what we're here for." The tension in the lobby melted, replaced with something brighter. Respect, hope, purpose. Jack walked toward the grand staircase, but before ascending, he turned back one last time. His deep voice carried through the hall. "Let the Grand Plaza always remember storms will come, but our doors will never close, not on anyone." And with that, he climbed the stairs, leaving behind silence that was no longer heavy with shame, but alive with determination. The staff looked at one another, changed forever by what they had witnessed. The lesson wasn't just about Katrine's fall or Jack's authority. It was about dignity, empathy, and the unshakable truth that one man's storm can become another man's shelter. And so the Grand Plaza stood, not merely a hotel, but a symbol. A reminder that humanity begins not with wealth or power, but with the simple act of opening a door. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories. Share with your community to spread the message of empathy and humanity.